From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. We begin in Ecuador, where people took to the streets in memory of the two journalists and their driver kidnapped near the border with Colombia and killed last week. Demonstrators gathered in San Francisco Square in the historic center of the capital city, Quito. They condemned the violence on the northern border with Colombia and demanded the release of a couple who were also recently kidnapped in the same area. Protesters wore white as a sign of peace and unity. The dialogue between the government of Colombia and the ELN guerrilla was put in doubt after the president of Ecuador, Lenín Moreno, decided to stop hosting the talks. Nonetheless, both sides have reaffirmed that they will continue working to reach a peace agreement.
Ecuadorian President Lenín Moreno announced that Ecuador is canceling its guarantor status in dialogue between Colombia's government and ELN. Moreno cited the volatile situation on the border with Colombia as the reason for the move. But could there be more behind this decision?
I think he couldn't stand the pressure of Ecuadorian public opinion. Another factor is that there is an inner conflict with former President Correa. Moreno thought that this was Correa's legacy and wanted to get rid of it.
For León Valencia, director of the Foundation Peace and Reconciliation, this wasn't the most appropriate diplomatic decision. However, he considers that the negotiations will continue regardless.
Both sides agree that if this fifth stage of negotiations goes well, they might well achieve a bilateral agreement for peace. They are working on a model of citizens' participation that will leave everything settled for the next generation.
For social organizations, this is completely necessary.
I think that Ecuador's government didn't think about their decision long enough. Ecuador has always supported Colombia's peace, and Colombian peace is the whole region's peace. I think that it should have been the main priority.
All of this indicated that agreements must be reached soon.
We will continue with our regular activities. The government said that the negotiation with the ELN is important, and we trust that the ELN also said that are totally willing to keep going on with this, and we expect them to keep with their word. The talks won't stop.
Now the question on everyone's mind is which of the other guarantor countries will receive these negotiations. Of all of them, Chile looks like the most likely step up.
José Manuel Jiménez, teleSUR, Bogotá, Colombia.
Still in Colombia, the Supreme Court has denied FARC member Jesus Santrich his request for habeas corpus. The judge in charge of the case, Octavio Augusto Trejo, determined Santrich's arrest was carried out according to the law. He will remain in prison until his case is resolved. His legal team will try to prevent his extradition to the U.S. Santrich was arrested for alleged drug trafficking at the request of the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, via the United States Embassy in Colombia. Miguel Diaz-Canel has been elected as the new president of Cuba after he won 99% of the vote in the new National Assembly of People's Power. Diaz-Canel will take over from Raúl Castro as president of the Council of State. On his first speech as president-elect, Diaz-Canel said it was a great honor to be serving the people of Cuba and that he will be continuing the revolutionary program of his predecessors.
I am honored and excited to accomplish our people's mandate to give our first thoughts to the historical generation that is guiding us to face the challenges that will come. Cuba is expecting from us that we are able, just like them, to fight all the combats that are awaiting.
Diaz-Canel also asked the Assembly to postpone the election of the rest of the members of the cabinet for a next session. Salvador Antonio Valdés Mesa was elected first vice president of the Council of Ministers.
I would like to propose to the Assembly the following. First, that we postpone until the next session in the National Assembly the election of the Council of Ministers, the government of the Republic. Secondly, that we approve the designation of the first Vice President of the Council of Ministers. we nominate our comrade Salvador Antonio Valdez Mesa, who was already nominated by this Assembly as the next first Vice President of the Council of State. Even though our Constitution does not force us to choose the same person for these positions, we believe this is the best way to give coherence, as it has been done during all these years of revolution.
The first Secretary of the Communist Party, Raúl Castro, closed the session at the new National Assembly. In his speech, Castro said it was time to let the new generation continue the work of the late commander Fidel Castro.
On February 24th of 2013, I said this would be my last term as President of the Council of State. I ratified this decision in December when I said here in this Assembly that Cuba was going to have a new president. It wasn't necessary to wait for a reform of the Constitution to maintain my word and act accordingly. It was more important to set an example.
Cuba's best-known meteorologist, José Rubiera, who is also a member of the National Assembly, told teleSUR that the new leadership would ensure the continuity of the revolution.
There is continuity because there is only one revolution from 1868 up to these days. People changes, but the revolution is just one. It's one for freedom, it's one for liberty, is one for the country. And therefore, the old generations are going to pass by someday, and new generations have to take over. So I believe that this is just a continuation. It is nothing new. But of course, it has to be developed in time because nothing is static. Everything is developing at every moment.
This week, Venezuela and Spain decided to try to repair their diplomatic relations, which have been at an all-time low. Our correspondent in Caracas, Freddie Gillingham, explains.
So it looks like it's one step forward and two steps back for the fairly faltering relations between the EU and Venezuela. A promise was, however, briefly restored on Wednesday of this week. Spanish President Rajoy had agreed with President Nicolas Maduro to restore relations and to return their respective ambassadors to their posts. This put an end to what has been months of quite a severe diplomatic crisis between the two countries, which started way back in January. However, the decision to restore relations did come from Venezuela's side. The foreign ministry here did send a personal letter to the Spanish foreign ministry and called for a political truce. However, that ray of light was overshadowed yesterday. The European Union have declared that they will be threatening to impose further sanctions against Venezuela just in the lead up to their presidential election, which is set to be taking place on May 20th in less than 1 month's time. The EU Foreign Affairs Minister, Federica Mogherini, did come out with a statement yesterday saying conditions for a credible and inclusive electoral process had been undermined without consensus from the opposition. This, of course, completely undermines and overlooks months, I repeat, months of political dialogue between the opposition and the government, which was going on since last year in the Dominican Republic. Of course, the government signed their side of the agreement, but the opposition pulled out just at the last minute from signing their part. This, of course, clearly shows that the EU aren't budging on their stance. They're following the US and Trump's administration in taking a harsh line against Venezuela, despite Spain, of course, a key country in that bloc, who have changed their turn and are showing signs of building relations with Venezuela.
That was Freddie Gillingham from Caracas. Now, 2 days before the elections in Paraguay, presidential candidates have closed their political campaigns. Mario Abdo Benitez of the ruling conservative Colorado Party is expected to win Sunday's elections. According to recent polls, he is ahead over opposition leader Efraín Alegre from the Ganar coalition by about 25 points. Abdo Benitez has promised, among other things, to fight against rising taxes in the farm sector. The new president, who will take office on August 15, will rule for 5 years and won't be able to be re-elected after the end of this term.
We're going to go out and vote to heal Paraguay. We're going to go out to vote to unify the Paraguayan people. We are going to go out to vote for reconciliation for all Paraguayans who are dreaming of a better Paraguay.
We'll take a short break now, but join us after a look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting. Welcome back. In Chile, students took to the streets to demand free and quality education, but were received by police repression.
The main avenue of Santiago overflowed with more than 120,000 people demanding their rights. According to the organizers, Plaza Italia and La Alameda were filled with people. It is the first protest since President Sebastián Piñera took office. In just a month, Piñera has given signs that concern the students and other political movements.
This idea of a national agreement policy is an attempt to bring back a practice that has been absolutely disastrous for social movements. It cares only for the interest of big economic groups. That is why we are absolutely against this move. We believe that today, more than ever, social movements must unite and take to the streets to demand the restitution of their fundamental rights.
The Constitutional Court left the door open to continue for-profit education practices, putting aside the historic demands of Chilean students. This is why, all over the country, their slogan was, Chile already decided.
Chile has not resolved the structural reform that is needed. It wasn't done in the previous government, and with this government, there are serious threats, like the statements of the Minister of Education, the ruling of the Constitutional Court, and the government's proposed agenda.
The Minister of Education, Geraldo Varela, has made ironic statements on sex and condoms in schools. This despite the fact that one of the demands from students is to receive non-sexist education.
He makes fun of the situation. He makes fun of everyone else and makes sexist comments. They don't take our situation seriously, despite how violent and precarious it is.
The march in Santiago had an event planned, but it couldn't take place due to the police repression students faced, which included the use of water hoses and tear gas to attack and corral protesters. A student of Arcis University was run over by a police truck. He has serious injuries. There are still no official numbers on the detained, but it is calculated to be more than 100 only in Santiago. Among them, the presidents of various universities' federations that denounced abuse even after being jailed. This is a protest that appears to show that all sectors won't take a step back in their demands.
A special meeting at the British House of Commons has been held to discuss the Windrush scandal. Among the issues discussed was the confirmation that an official debate on the matter will take place in Parliament on April 30th. Attendees were encouraged to contact their members of Parliament with their concerns. These are the challenges facing the members of the Windrush generation as they fight to prove they are legal British citizens. Speaking at the meeting, Labour MP David Lammy spoke of the debt the UK owes its citizens of Caribbean origin.
Because the Caribbean and the West Indies didn't just come about by accident. The relationship between this country and our people is indelible. It is a bond that goes back 400 years. When we think of the Windrush children, we cannot think of the Windrush children without also thinking of Windrush ancestors. And so our story begins when ships brought Africans from the continent of Africa to the Caribbean.
Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown says people who have been inconvenienced by the Windrush scandal should be compensated.
And many of these individuals really do not have any connection with their country of birth. They would have been in the United Kingdom all their lives, would have worked extremely hard for the advancement of the United Kingdom, and that in itself would have been an extremely inequitable position. So we're very happy that the government has stepped in and has come up with a mechanism to resolve the issue.
The treatment of the Windrush generation immigrants has provoked anger among many black people in Britain. teleSUR took the pulse in Brixton, long a center of the Afro-Caribbean community.
All I can say is that it's absolutely disgusting. I don't know where they get off. I have no idea where they get off. It's like they take and take and take, you know, from the black people, and then there's no give. You know what I mean? And then if they give any little small thing, they take it back all the time. That's history just shows you that. You just check the record, and that's all you see.
Albert Thompson, and this is not his real name, has become a symbol of the Windrush problem currently taking place in the UK. Albert has been diagnosed with cancer and is being denied treatment because he cannot produce a passport or visa. He has lived and worked in the UK since he was 17. Jamaica's head of state, Jacqueline Calderton, started a GoFundMe campaign to raise the £54,000 needed to treat Albert if the National Health Service won't fund it.
Albert has been, I think, I've heard that he's very, very happy to hear of the public's support for his plight. He also, waited to get permission to start that fundraiser from Albert, and he felt that there was a need for it. Again, he's very happy that it's there, but he also is very, very stressed and sad that the government hasn't allowed him to have that treatment for free, which is what he is entitled to.
The Free Lula camp marked 11 days of demonstrations this Wednesday in the city of Curitiba, Brazil, and its members have faced pressure from the authorities.
Men and women from all across Brazil are in Curitiba, demanding freedom for Lula da Silva. They have to sleep in this place because of a court order removing them from outside the police headquarters. They have been attacked by fascist groups and say the police is not protecting them. However, they are determined to continue.
Coming here has given us strength. Now there are more people and there have been demonstrations all over the world. This is why we have gained the strength to continue to resist. They were expecting us to go away, and the truth is, we stay here.
A lot of people are still demonstrating near the prison where Lula is serving his sentence. Supporters include artists who have created artworks in support of the former president.
Art is a very important tool in the struggle. It helps transform the pain in hope. We are here to support the struggle, and we use art to do this.
On Wednesday, during a meeting in the Free Lula camp, unions agreed on a day of action for Lula on May 1st, so the unions can add their voice to the call for Lula's freedom.
Social movements hope that Lula will be free before May 1st and that the Supreme Federal Court reverse its decision. If he is still in jail by then, union federations will have a day of action on May 1st. Many union leaders and members have already come here, and we are now calling on the working class to join Lula's defense.
A lot of people will continue to join the resistance in Curitiba up until May 1st.
I have traveled more than 3,000 kilometers to be in this camp, fighting with the people. As a young person and as a Brazilian student, I understand the importance of fighting for Lula's freedom, because it's not just an attack on one person, but an attack on a whole class and on our democracy.
Lula has been in this police building since April 7, and he has had the support of the hundreds of people who have gathered here. They promise they will continue until Lula is free.
We'll take another short break, but join us after a look at what a multimedia team reports.
Let me take this opportunity to warn our people publicly about the wrong practices indulged in and promoted by some of the outsiders. One of them is what they call oral sex. The mouth is for eating, not for sex. The mouth is for eating. Okuria.
Welcome back. Russia says the Syrian government has found containers of chlorine from Germany in eastern Ghouta, the site of an alleged chemical attack. It says they also found smoke grenades produced in Britain. The Syrian army recaptured the area from Islamist armed groups last weekend.
In liberated areas of eastern Ghouta, Syrian government forces found chlorine in containers, the most dangerous kind of chemical weapons from Germany, and smoke pellets produced in, attention, Salisbury, Great Britain. Now I think everyone knows where the city Salisbury is located. This fact is hard to comment on as it is horrendous and undermines faith in the humanity of certain states. Of course, we are not talking about the whole state. We are talking about those politicians and leaders who give such orders and take such decisions. I would also like to bring attention to the fact that in January 2013, the British newspaper The Daily Mail published a story revealing that the White House agreed that the USA and their allies would make a chemical attack in Syria and agreed to blame the president of this country, Assad, in order to strengthen international military operations in this country. Both Russia and Syria have repeatedly announced the existence of data suggesting that militants were preparing a provocation with chemical weapons about clandestine labs producing all kinds of weaponry being discovered in eastern Ghouta's liberated areas. All this information was sent, is being sent, and will be sent to the OPCW, but it still remains unnoticed by the West, the Western mainstream media, which do everything possible to ignore it.
Some residents of Duma have been talking about how things have changed since the Islamist fighters have left.
No one was able to walk in the streets before and no one had food. Now we can go and anyone from the Syrian Arab army will offer you anything you demand. We are happy now, and our faces know how to be happy. While before, if you asked for food, the militants would say, we don't have any. But their stores were full.
The situation is 4,000 times different, or even more. We ate bran. We had a meal every 24 hours. I have 4 kids. I fed them with a love of animal fodder of this size, while the militants were storing too much of bread. Just see the difference when the militants left.
Protests in South Africa have prompted the country's president Cyril Ramaphosa to cut his UK visit short. Here's more on that and other stories making headlines from around the world.
South African President Cyril Ramaphosa had to leave the Commonwealth Summit in the UK to attend to a violent protest at home. People have been demonstrating in Mahikeng, a town in the country's northwest province. The protesters demand jobs, better housing and the construction of roads and hospitals. They are also asking for the resignation of their province's premier, who belongs to the Ramaphosa's African National Congress party. The King of Swaziland, Mswati III, has changed the name of his country to Eswatini to mark 50 years of independence from the British. The new name means place of the Swazi. The change is also partly because the ruler thinks foreigners easily confuse Swaziland with Switzerland in Europe. A hotline between the leaders of North Korea and South Korea has been installed a week before they have planned to hold a summit. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in will meet on Friday at the border village of Panmunjom, but they plan to speak on the phone before meeting face-to-face. The main agenda of the talks will be resolving the nuclear standoff in the peninsula. Kim is also scheduled to meet US President Donald Trump sometime in May or early June.
Australian scientists have said that climate change will lead to a dramatic reduction of the Great Barrier Reef. Warm seas around the reef killed a third of a 700-kilometer stretch of coral, making it calcify and turn white, a process known as bleaching. Climate change also threatens to change the ecosystem of the Great Barrier Reef. Scientists said the future of the reef will be closely tied to whether countries can adhere to the Paris Agreement. And now we've come to the end of this news brief. This and many other stories, as you know, you can find them on our website, telesurtv.net/English. And you can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.